Today's guest is a professional author and inspirational speaker. She gives talks to audiences on her books, Tree of Hope. Anne Frank's father shares his wisdom with an American teen in the world, and Strength from Nature, simple lessons of life taught by the most unlikely masters, the nature teachers. Let's welcome today's special guest, Cara Wilson Granat. Welcome, Cara.
Thank you, Adam. Very thrilled to be with you.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You had sent me your TED Talks and the impressive
Yes.
and inspiring message that was shared by you and your experiences with Otto Frank, the father of Anne Frank. In the
Yes.
interim, I sent that video to many of my friends and my daughter as well, and everyone
Oh,
was so inspired because we go through life's challenges of being in a situation where we become the victim of a circumstance. And in that position, we sometimes don't know
mhm.
how to really get out of it or really empower ourselves to a place of feeling our inner strength. And your work through the two books that you've written really give the reader and the audience the opportunity to really learn how to do that. Maybe you could share a little bit first off in terms of uh, your connection to Otto Frank and the father of Anne Frank and how that all began.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, Adam. We're all doing what we're here signed up for, I believe. And I've always believed I was a channel for those whose voices need to be heard. And I'm in the mid 50s. The Diary of Anne Frank had become very popular. It was newly, it's like became a classic book, became a Broadway show. And then these talent scouts were going all over the country looking to audition for a young girl who looked like Anne. They were doing the movie. They wanted to create the movie, 20th Century Fox. And a talent scout found me. I was 12. I looked a lot like Anne at that age. And I asked if I would audition for the movie. Well, oh my God, of course. I'm California, loved theater all my life, my young life at that point. And yes, so I went to 20th Century Fox and I auditioned and I didn't get the part, uh, which was like, what? But I found out, I said, was Otto Frank still alive, the father of Anne Frank? They said, yes, he was the only one that survived. Those in hiding that when they went in were captured. And he was in Basel, Switzerland. And I said, could I write to him? And they gave me his address. And that's what began this lifelong journey. He answered me a very brief little letter. Thank you. And I talk to young people. I said, you know what I mean when I say a letter? Because in those days, this is not, you have to wait. We're talking about paper and stamps and envelopes and waiting a lot of time, and received it, and he said, thank you very much for writing to me. You understand that I write to young people all over and I can't continue our correspondence, but do good in Anne's name. It was that kind of short and sweet. I was out of my mind excited. And of course, I wrote him right back. I said, that's okay, Mr. Frank. You don't have to write to me. I just want to write to you. So he realized kid's not going away. I kept writing to him and his second wife, Fritzi, who we met coming back from the camps. And I poured out my heart to him. I decided he was going to be like my grandfather, a mentor, and everything I went through in my life, I wrote to him about. And it was, there's one pivotal letter I can talk to you about later, but he was a guy, this gentle, sweet man that always answered me, no matter what I said, non-judgmental, kind, and I just loved him. And it was only 3 years before he passed. In fact, yesterday, the 19th of August, was the anniversary of his passing. He
Wow.
died in 1980. He was 91, and I met him 3 years before he passed in Basel. So he was a man. What he gave me is what I want to continue. Is he gave me hope. He would not allow me to even be, I will tell you, in the 60s,
Yeah.
when our world was, oh my God, the Kennedy King assassinations, the Vietnam War, race riots, it was like beyond, it was a world I never thought I would witness or be a part of. And I wrote to him and I said, I don't know why you have so much hope, because I have none for the world. I'll never bring a child into a world this cruel. And he wrote back to me and he said, Cara, even if you believe the end of the world is imminent, you still plant a tree today.
Right.
You can't give up hope. And he had, for my birthday a few months later, I received a card from him that said 2 trees had been planted in his, for me, from him.
Wow.
And he knew that would get to me, because nature is my, even though I'm Jewish, nature is my religion. Nature is where I believe the universe, where God is. And he knew that. And it was, it was very pivotal. It is really something that I think about all the time, among the other lessons that he gave me.
Yeah. In terms of this relationship itself, how long did you first correspond before you met one another? And the two folk,
It was nearly 20. Yeah. Yeah, go on.
yeah, how many you can go
What
ahead,
was
tell
your
me.
other question?
No, go ahead. Tell me how many years.
Um, it it was about 18 plus years. We hadn't met. This was all writing back and forth, and not only writing to me, is but when I got married and I had children, he and Fritzy would send cookies to them. They were like Uncle Otto and Aunt Fritzy. They were our family, along with the rest of the family. His nephew, Buddy Elias, was very much a pivotal person in my life, in our life. Um, so they were very much a family. And but I still hadn't met him. I was raising children. I hadn't, I never would leave them. And finally, um, I went to Basel, and it was very emotional. I was so worried that, he wouldn't be what I prayed he would be. And he was more than I could even imagine. There were so many moments, Adam, that I could, talk about the whole thing. I talk about it in the TED talk,
Yes,
but
yes.
that one moment is like when, I'm talking a mile a minute. I was so excited to see him, this beautiful, beautiful man. And he opens up this huge cupboard door in his home. And from ceiling to floor, there were thousands of letters from children all over the world. He made me feel so special. I knew there were other people. I had no idea how many. And then he took a huge box and put it down in front of me and said, and these are your letters. So he kept all my letters.
Wow.
He validated me the way he validated all of us.
Yes.
Uh, I'll never, ever, ever forget that moment
Yeah.
and how much that meant to me.
How was it like? What was it like in terms of sharing this relationship with family members? Were you able to share this with your mother? Were you able to share this with relatives to tell them what was going on and the impact it had on your
I
life?
did, I did, but it wasn't until later, like now, when the impact has been stronger. Then it was just people knew about it. Um, my father later, he was a good man, but he was, a businessman. He was away and what he was just in his own world. Uh, Otto was like a father figure. He was my Atticus Finch, like from To Kill a Mockingbird. He was that. My father later expressed even jealousy, which I was so surprised, but I hadn't even thought that he would even care.
Yeah.
And what I realized as a woman looking back on this, I idolized Otto the way I continue. He was a great human being, but he was also in captivity, in prison, in this little annex with his family. He had been a businessman, and he said those were one of his most beautiful memories of his children, because he had time, and most fathers don't, because they're busy out there working. So to me, it looked like he was the ultimate father, because he gave so much time to his daughters. Of course he did. He
Right.
couldn't go anywhere. So I see it now in a different perspective. But he was such a gentle man and kind. And the children that wrote to him from all over the world were literally all over the world, including a lot of German children who didn't really know what happened, or they wanted forgiveness, or they didn't think, they thought he would hate them. He didn't. I never heard him say a guileless, bitter thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
Yeah, you talk about
just
you talk about being a victim in terms of as a father and his love of being in that role as a father. in terms of some of this
Hmm.
stuff you discuss about being in the concentration camps and asking some of the children to
Right.
call him Papa. Uh, and
Yes.
and in looking back at that, being in this role that he was in, you had asked him the question, "Do you want to know who betrayed you and the family?" And he gave you a profound answer. And maybe you could just to talk a little bit about that
Sure.
and how it impacted you.
Sure. What I will go back to what you said when he was in the camps. This young man, Sal de Lima, was with him, and Otto said, "Let's focus on try not to think about what's around us because it was nothing death and dying and the stench of death." He said, "Let's talk about music and literature." And he said, "And call me Papa Frank, because that is who I am." His identity kept him going. All he wanted to do was see his daughters and rescue them. It was devastating, but he said, "Please call me Papa Frank." And this man only called him Papa Frank even later when they were both liberated. And so now cut to when they were liberated and he was liberated, trying to find his daughters. They all, everybody, have you seen my uncle, my aunt, my all these things. He kept going when and trying to find out who could have done this. So when he first was liberated, it was, was this somebody I knew? Was who did this? Who did this? When I met him, there was a peace. He had come to peace. The world's children reached out to him. He was the father figure to all of us. He was very happily married to Fritzi, who had her daughter Eva, who had introduced them. There were children. He had put it never forgot. I saw the pain in his eyes. He never forgot it, but he was taking Anne's words around the world. So when I asked him, Otto, do you know who betrayed you? He just turned to me and looked and he said, "It doesn't matter." It mattered at one point very much. But when I asked him that question, he had come to peace. And what he was saying to me is, let it go.
Yeah,
We believe he did know, but it wasn't going to bring his children back alive. If it was anyone, there was some suspects of who it could be, one in particular. If there were any of these key people, it would have been, they would have been a father who had children. And he would never, ever, ever incriminate any father, no matter who it was, if they had children.
yeah,
He was to the depth of his soul, he was a father. So he was telling me, let it go. It doesn't matter. And that helped me so much because afterwards, my own life went crash and burn after he died, divorce, all these things, and everything mattered. But I heard inside me, does this really matter?
right.
What really matters? What do you have that is good and blessed in your life? And can you make that matter more than what you're going through right now? And I still practice that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've been through divorce myself in terms of having two children, and
Hmm.
the disconnect and the pain of the separation from those
Hmm.
feelings uh, can place you in a feeling of poor me and look at the situation of how things have ridden you down. But yet you look at Otto Frank and your connection to him in terms of him having to experience what he did in some capacity to then be a lighthouse of information and
Hmm.
a figure that was able to then impart genuine wisdom that people could really take because of his personal experiences. I think we all go through.
Exactly.
I think we all go through these authentic situations to experience something, then be able to teach and help others in the process. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and what's interesting is that you were so wise at your age in order to make this connection with somebody older than you, and to be willing to want to learn. I mean, most teenagers and people in their 20s and 30s, they're in a different place sometimes in their lives. They don't come to that position until maybe later. But to seek the
Hmm.
wisdom that you did was interesting. What was some of the things other than the thing you just mentioned that he also spoke about that was profound to you, if you could share? His
Well,
outlook.
in my book, in my book, Tree of Hope, which is what I consider him, is a tree of hope because of, the trees he planted. Trees mean a lot to me. He, it's basically what really matters was huge because then, uh, And I think that was a pivotal one.
Right.
And to be validated, he validated not only me, but all children all over the world. When I look at the letters I wrote, they're embarrassing to me because it was sort of blah, 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 blah. It didn't matter. It was just basically I wrote to him and he wanted to answer. I was a child who wanted to talk to him. The way all I know, two of them have become my brothers. One became a priest because of Otto Frank. And, he's I adore him. He's my father brother. And another one is an artist who had been a Jehovah's Witness and gone through a lot of pain. Otto practically adopted him, literally. It was just amazing. He took so many of us under his wing. What taught me more than anything is that you can go through the worst, and he went through the worst. His children were killed. How could you? There's nothing
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah. Right.
And yet he was able to transfer that. He made a choice of love over hate. And, there's that wonderful expression, holding on to hatred and revenge and anger is like taking poison and hoping it kills the other person.
Right.
And he made a choice of I want to live and I want to use this pain. And my daughter wants to go on after her, which she expressed even after my death. And he was able to honor her and Margaret, his other daughter, in choosing love. So, when I went to, like, that you talk about the hit bottom, and I did. I'm sitting on the floor with 6 animals. I didn't know how I'm going to feed them all. And I didn't know what happened in my life. And it was just like, this is okay. I've reached the end of my life. Nothing about that was true. And what I ultimately believe, this is my own belief system. I don't know if it's a little bit of everything. I believe we choose our paths.
Right.
And that helped me. It's sort of like my background is a lot of theater and art. And in theater, you take on different roles. Today, I'm going to be the clown. Tomorrow, maybe I'll be the whatever. You're going to be my brother. You're going to be my father. You're going to be my sister. And then we'll switch. We'll try this way. Because what you're doing is you're evolving your soul. Your soul needs to feel what it feels like to be in other people's moccasins, their shoes. And so when I would go to that place of what in the world just happened to my life, long marriage and everything was so cozy. And the next thing I'm booted into a world of disarray. It turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. And because it was the path I needed to go on. And he was part of it. He was part of it. It was so amazing. Even after his passing, I'm sitting on the floor with these animals. I had a fax machine going and it's pumping out these papers, and it's from a producer friend of mine, and said, I think I found a publisher who wants to publish your book about Otto Frank. And I'm going, what? That was so amazing.
Yeah.
And it was like Otto saying, you can't give up.
Yeah.
So,
It's
I mean, that
interesting.
was the beginning.
Yeah, the synchronicities that exist in life that put us on this path if we just, if we just awaken towards the wonder around us. And you mentioned nature
That's right.
itself, and nature itself creates an opening towards our path if we just pay attention to the animals that cross our way,
That's right.
to the weather and to the patterns that exist. Sometimes we're not aware of that, but you are, and you were guided to go out into nature and to be able to really appreciate it. And that was your true teacher as you speak, which is an
That is
interesting
true.
thing. It's not a rabbit hole. Well, it is in some way a rabbit hole. You first become a victim of circumstances, and then
Hmm.
eventually you meet people who then give you wisdom and insight if you open up and listen to it.
Right.
And then as you take on that information, then you become the mirror and reflect it back to others who are on that path of learning. And
That's right.
nature is that mirror for us after a while, because
Absolutely.
did you think anybody can fill the void of Otto once he passed? Was that feeling like you missed him in terms of him holding a place in your life?
I see. I still believe he's here. I don't believe in death. I mean, you get freaked out. I'm getting older, and ultimately, I'm not going to be here. But I do believe that the presence of those. I feel so strongly. Like even I've talked about. I'll ask him. Do you want me to do this? Is this something you're comfortable in? I talk to my family. I talk to my animals. I feel like they're just in another room.
Right.
And so to me, you know, our goal is to keep the link alive. And when we are communicators, that's how we do it. You know, whenever I've given a talk, I can hear his voice saying to me, this is not about you. This is not about you. Just tell the story. And I've told people when they get, you know, stage fright, which I many times do, I think, oh my God, I don't know if I, you know, it isn't. We're storytellers, and that helps me so much. But nature still is the thing that the gift, Mother Nature. I go out by the river. My husband does fly fishing. I sit there and I breathe in and I look around, and there's always a gift, always an answer, always something,
Yeah.
constantly. You know, I walk away. That's what nature, you know, my book on strength from nature, it's that's the gift. I mean, if you just study trees, they're communicators. They, you know, they reach out to each other even after they're cut down. They are, you know, the Native Americans called them tree people. They're beyond anything you can even talk about. Every single animal is a gift, and I've studied so many of them. I can learn from them, and I continue learning from them. Mother Nature is this not just a thing. I'll tell people, if you are stressed out, just go anywhere where there is nature. Pet your animal, pet somebody else's animal, go outside where you can breathe in nature, and you will find a comfort that nothing else can give you.
Yeah. Well,
Just, you know,
I mean, you're an example of being a spiritual person in terms of being balanced, in terms of going into the universe as well as being grounded on the earth.
mhm,
And I think nature creates that balance for us, allowing that energy to flow. When,
right.
you know, was it Otto Frank in terms of planting the tree that set you on the path of understanding nature and how it can you can feel the love of the tree itself, or what was the impetus that
No,
put you on
no,
that path?
I always loved them. You know, my family were animal lovers. I mean, to me, I always found comfort in animals. Always did. You know, I've loved them since I was born. And but he reinforced knowing me, and he knew how much I loved Anne. And the thing that kept Anne going in the attic, when she'd go up, and there'd just be a tiny little window up in the attic, and she'd sit there on a lawn chair with Peter, and they could see the sky and the chestnut tree. And the chestnut tree meant so much to her, and she talked about that. And so when I met him, not to say there, of course, we're very different. I never say that I'm like her, but in our enthusiasm for nature and love for nature, he said, you remind me of her that way, you know. And he intuitively knew that I would relate to this gift of trees more than anything else. It it was and that was the greatest gift he could have given me besides himself. And that I tell other people, you know, plants, trees, flowers, if I have to surround myself with them, they are the healers to me. And one of the things I wrote, and I'm going to rewrite it, I hope I can say, can I say SHIT? Okay, it takes a lot of shit to make a garden grow. And
Yeah.
that's what I believe. We need the
Manure.
balance, the minutia, the fodder, the crap in life. We say, oh, how could this happen? Well, you need it. A garden needs that. That's how it grows. You look at the lotus plant. The lotus is anchored in mud and gunk, and its petals go to the sun. That's what we are. That's what life is.
Yeah.
And we need both,
But many times
the
we,
darkness and the light.
yeah, but many times we seek external to ourselves, the material items, the beauty, the vanity, naturally to survive on this planet and naturally to interact with with others around us and to also fulfill ourselves, you know, that we are vital. But many people
That's right.
just focus on that external aspect of themselves instead of looking within to face the dark shadows
Hmm.
that they feel. Um, did you ever go, did you ever have, did you ever feel the imbalance of that aspect of yourself? And how did you get yourself out of it if you needed to? In
I
other
still
words,
haven't, Adam. I
okay,
have to balance myself all the time. I
okay,
really do, because I have I'd say the main reason I speak about hope is because I fight hopelessness. It's there. There is a darkness that says, give up, which I won't, but it's there. And so I seek balance. I was going to be a dancer. I have to balance myself. I do Tai Chi, anything I can to get me on the on a track of balance.
Yeah.
And that is one of my life lessons. So one thing I've learning is that if I say I've learned something, I'm practically hit by a 2x4 flat in my face, because it's like, I haven't learned anything, but I'm learning I know when I'm imbalanced. I'll become physically spinning or emotionally spinning. And then of course, diet. I did find years ago, this doctor was really great. Too much sugar, you're going to be imbalanced. You're going to have nightmares. You're going to, so part of that balance is keeping yourself healthy. And when you're not, you're reminded fast.
Yeah, that's
And,
true.
it is. It's as I found that I didn't realize, because I always suffered from terrible nightmares. And this doctor, he was incredible. He pulled me off of all sugar, which was like a junkie. I was like, how could you? I was a mess. But he showed me a list of all the aspects of poison that sugar does, which is, alcohol, everything like that.
Yeah.
But nightmares was on there. I said, nightmares? He says, yeah, stop eating sugar. You're not going to have nightmares. And boy, was he right. I'll still have them, but if I have them, I know what I've eaten has been sugary.
Right.
I haven't given up all that, but I know now to, monitor it. And if I have too much, I'm going to have nightmares, because your body's talking to you, it's screaming at you. And we tend to forget that. We think it's all mental or spiritual. It's also physical.
Yeah,
And,
no,
if
I
you're, you know,
the metaphysical,
yeah.
obviously there's a correlation between, a lot of times we don't deal with our emotions that get stored in the physical body in terms of that aspect. But as you mentioned, the nutrition is another end of it, that we have to
Mhm.
take notice of or take heed. Have you found, in terms of the younger generation coming up now, have you been confronted with anyone that mirrors what you felt, or do you see that happening? That people looking for inspiration now in these times? What's your take
More
on
than
what's going?
ever.
Okay, yeah,
More than ever. I have met some of the most evolved young people, very young children, that are here. I believe I keep saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry in my heart that you have to be here. And yet they're here. They're very wise old souls. They know why they're here, and they've chosen a path. They're here. My grandchildren are that way. I mean, they're just beyond anything I could even imagine. But yes, I've had conversations with young people. They are seeking. We talked about. I talked in my talks. I say, be your own tree of hope. You need to be a tree of hope. And this young high schooler said, "Well, how can I? What can I do to be a tree of hope? What is that I can do?" And I'm saying, it doesn't take much to do some little thing, even just the smallest thing, to plant hope within yourself and others. We need to keep doing it. We have to move forward and keep planting, and keep planting, metaphorically, spiritually. We cannot stop, because that's what we're here for. When you stop, your garden dries up. Why are you here then?
right,
And, if I gave up hope, I considered myself what I call a hypocrite. I can't speak about hope if I have none.
yeah,
So I have to keep feeding my soul, even a small thing. At the end of my talks, I have a big bowl of pebbles, smooth stones, and say, come up and pick up and everybody finds their stone that they love. And I said, you are that stone. Hold it in your hand. When you throw a pebble into a pool of water, it sends out ripples, and that's who you are. It's either negative or positive. You can affect everybody. The way you are, the way you feel, your direction. We have that power in our hand, even like a small pebble. And again, these are things I need to remember constantly and remind myself that that is true, because I go to a dark side, a dark place of not thinking it's going to ever get any better. The world to me is such a beautiful world, and what we humans have undone to it uh, tears me apart. Until I look at one by one. And I learn when I see survivors, people that are doing good.
Right.
And I'm a survivor junkie. People that have doing good, rescuing an animal, a bug, a neighbor, something. And I think, okay, there's hope. As long as I know that that person did that, I can go on.
Yeah, I think a big,
Mm.
yeah, that's very inspiring. I think of the subject of self-love in terms of really opening
Mhm.
ourselves up to ourselves first. And once we're able to do that, then we're able to love other things. I mean, animals can be in our company, but if we don't really know how to love ourselves, we can't allow that love into our soul. And for myself, for example,
Absolutely.
I've had dogs before, and the dog that I have now, I feel is from a past life. And
Mhm.
I'm connected to this dog very much. I look in its eyes and I tell him, "Do you remember this? And do you remember that?" And while it may not be true in terms of on this plane itself, I know on some subconscious level I feel that connection, and so I feel the love. But it's a matter of me looking at myself and loving me in the presence of the dog, and being in
Absolutely.
that godly state almost. Um, and so for
I
yourself,
understand it.
the dark side, the dark parts of ourselves, I think are the parts that we lose faith and hope, not only in humanity or the external world, but of reverting back to a place where we didn't feel good about ourselves, or
Right.
and that imagery of who we are. Which brings me to that inner child. How have you connected to your inner child? Are you in touch with your inner child? What are your thoughts on that? Do you see Anne Frank when you see an inner child?
N- No, there's parts of, uh, I've realized, and I hate to be labeled an empath. We're all empaths. I believe we all are. We're all capable of that. My challenge is to be able to separate myself from those that I read about, learn about, love, study, that I can help represent them, but not be them. And I found that, the inner child, I could say, all right, maybe you were in the Holocaust, and I believe you were. You're not in the Holocaust now. You could represent those that were. You're safe. You're safe. And that's something that I needed to know. This little girl in me needed to know that she's safe. She's not there anymore. And I was hospitalized when it was very little. I have to remember that those are things that happened then. Right now, this little girl is safe. And that's something I have to reinforce. And yes, animals are angels. I could never be in this world without my dogs. I've cats. I've had animals all around. We have a wonderful doggie now. Um, I think every relationship, whether it's a dog, a fish, whatever it is in your life that impacts you, are mirrors to you, to your soul. We need relationships. So people that live alone on a mountaintop, it may be beautiful and isolating, and maybe that's what they need in this lifetime. But I feel I've learned so much from good, bad, ugly, horrible, fabulous relationships about me. How could I have picked this horrible person? What about me is like that?
Right.
What about me is good? What about me is terrible? You know, why did I, what is this person, animal, anything doing on my path,
Right.
trying to tell me?
Yeah.
We're all teachers and we're all students.
Yeah.
And
That's
sometimes I say, I'm so sick of it. Can I have recess, please? You know, I'm tired of this learning, but it doesn't stop.
Yeah, that's a great point in terms of the people that come into our lives as teachers for us. The most difficult people in our lives teach us the greatest lessons. I mean, I've
Hmm.
learned that myself over the course of over the last so odd years, and I always tell people, like you just said, um, don't look at it as something negative. Look at it as a teaching moment to learn from it,
That's right.
and then from that moment, then you can, I guess, pass it on to someone else who's going through the same experience. And in terms of the relationship you shared with Otto, he had to have that experience in order for him to be
Yes,
the light post to teach others to be an authentic teacher. So the person like yourself and those
exactly.
other people wrote him would have gotten an authentic message. Um, it's just such a fascinating story. Have you ever gone back to Amsterdam? Have you seen the house? Have you been in the museum at
Since
all?
then, no, well, not there, but
Yeah,
in North Carolina,
yeah.
Columbia, I'm sorry, Columbia, South Carolina. We have the only Anne Frank Center in our in North America.
Okay.
It's part of the university there, and I they were new. I've heard about them. I fell in love with them. In fact, Father John told me about that, and he said, do you know that there's a center?" And I went there, and it is fabulous. So people that can't go to Amsterdam, they have replicated the Anne Frank
Okay.
house, the bookshelf. That it's all students from all over the world tour you and teach you. They have guests from all over the world. It's the most beautiful place, and I donated all my letters to them. So
Wow.
they have now Otto's letters, and they have archived them. It made me cry. They did it so beautifully. So you could see them in the most gorgeous way. And they're trying to collect more from, I hope they can get the letters from all over the world from, it's hard because they're in archives in Holland, but they need, they're a wonderful group of people. So I've gone there 2 or 3 times giving talks. I can't tell, people must go there. Columbia, South Carolina, the Anne Frank Center. And it's just the director Doyle Stevick has just done an extraordinary job to keeping the replica of Anne's story and Otto's story alive. And you walk in there and you feel it.
Right.
It's just amazing. So no, I haven't gone to the back into Amsterdam. That's on the list, and I've got to do it soon. Um, uh, it's sort of like so many people have come into my life through these stories. I've
Right.
met
Right.
wonderful people that are now my friends, and they live all over the world.
Which goes to show you that time and space are irrelevant in terms of it doesn't
Yeah,
really matter. And you could connect to people through telepathy, through other means, and not be
that's
exactly
right.
or need to be in that exact spot to connect to the energy or the experience of it, as you can attest to.
That's
Um,
right.
are you still in contact with the Frank family? Do you communicate with them?
Yes. Um, the only one who is still alive is Gertie, uh, Buddy Elias, the nephew's a wife, and she's elderly now, so it's and she really only likes to speak in German. She wrote me back. She's the only one. Eva is on her, she's very old. Meep has passed. Meep and Jan came to our house in Hollywood. Uh, uh, the the second generation, Buddy Elias's son is we still communicate. They're in Germany. He's in his wife, and he's just darling. I mean, you can see when I met Buddy Elias, and again, he's the nephew, and talks about him, her first cousin, and they were crazy about each other. And when I met him, it was like sitting with Anne Frank because he's an actor, very dramatic, I saw her eyes in him,
Right.
and funny, and she was all those things that the exterior self that you saw. And I said, what was she like? He said, she was a brat. And then he started laugh. He was crazy about her. They just adored each other. And she talked about him a lot in the diary. And he came to my son's high school graduation. He was just a really wonderful man. I love him so much. So, and I miss him like crazy. So really it's the second generation. It's the one son, the other one passed, Oliver. And that's, they're all, they've all passed,
Yeah.
So, but what's happened is that the correspondence, Father John and Ryan Cooper are like my brothers. And they're like archivists. They're like scholars. They've gone, I can call Father John, and I do all the time. Tell me again, what was the date? When did that happen? What were they wearing? Who was that? He's like a genius.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like a walking scholar, and he remembers everything. And he's kept in contact with a lot of the pivotal people in the story, a lot of them. And of course, most of them are gone, but I didn't do, to me, Otto was my main source that, and when
Yeah.
Fritzy and I stayed in contact until she passed, and I went to see her. It was about a year or so before she passed, and she was wonderful. She was very supportive to me, like a grandmother, and very funny. She was very funny and very, very blunt. If she didn't like something, you knew it. And I was crazy about her. So yeah,
It's we look
wonderful,
we look at
wonderful. They were extended family.
yeah, I was going to just mention in terms of family itself, we look at family as being blood, but in many cases, blood teaches us the greatest lessons, disappointments, and setbacks in order for us to
Hmm.
grow. And then we really sometimes find our soul family, which enhances our soul's growth, like you did probably
That's
with
right.
meeting Otto and myself in different
Hmm.
situations. And then we revert back to maybe even past life experiences where we've had some connection to these people, where we can actually feel
Hmm.
the remembrance of certain people, or in just being communicating, not even being in their presence, and just
That's right.
brings us back to those feelings of something that we know, but just we just know. And
We know the
yeah,
feeling. They're reminders of who you are.
yeah, and
You
and the
know, they
experiences.
they are reminders. And hmm
Yeah, I mean, in terms of past lives
for
itself,
my,
yeah, and and so it's just a very interesting journey that you've been on, and the fact that you're remained connected to your inner child, which makes you seek and grow, and never give up
hmm
the hope of investigating and learning and seeking. I guess certain people are seekers by nature.
hmm
Nothing that they seek satisfies them. They're always looking for something else to overturn and to look into. Um,
hmm
uh, what is some of the things that you're doing right now? Are you working on anything specific? Any types of new projects?
Yeah, I'm working with a friend. We formed. I've done this before, where I write people's stories, memoirs, whatever, and we're doing a 90-day turnaround, ghostwriting. Her name is Sally Lot, and Lots, and I can send you the information. She is, she's gonna together we find these different people. We're going to start on a client this week and just do these quick turnarounds. I'm working on projects with my sons, writing projects that I'm very excited about. So I keep writing. Again, to the child, I wanted to go back to the child. I learned so much from children, my children, my grandchildren, and there are certain things that they're so present. They're just like animals. They're guileless. They basically, what they see in front of them is, I remember sitting for hours, like we were looking at bugs or flies or something, and you find yourself just enchanted because you're seeing through their eyes.
Yes,
I
yes,
highly recommend that. And there was one practice that I used to do. You take like a hula hoop or something, you put it on the ground, and you sit down with this child and say, okay, what do you see inside this hoop? What do you see? And it becomes a world unto itself. You see blades of grass moving, you see bugs going around, you see a worm inside this hoop. And it was just, before you know it, hours can go by and you're watching this. Children remind you, and they tap into your inner child. You see in a different way, a
yeah,
perspective, and it's an honesty. And that's what I love speaking with young people, primarily middle school on up. Um, and with middle school boys, because I've raised boys, grandchildren, I speak boy really well. I love them all, but they're, if you lose them, you've lost them, man. So I call it the squirm factor. And when I'm giving a talk and they're listening and they're not moving, I'm going, okay, we're on this track. If they
yes,
start doing the squirming thing, it's not true. They don't, they want the truth from you. They don't want you to be funny and anything like that. Tell me the story true. Don't entertain me like that.
that's true. That's true.
And they're, yeah, they've made me much purer.
Yeah, I've taught phys ed. I was a junior high school
Well,
teacher for 30 years. And so in order to captivate my audience, I knew to be as authentic as possible and not tell a story to the boys. Girls like stories, they like the gossip, they like
right.
more of the drama, and the boys more in touch with, all right, give me a scenario that I can relate to. and point
That's
blank.
right.
And so, in dealing with children, as you just mentioned, I think, and I
Hmm.
only know from my experience that I've taught with people who are connected to their inner child and work with people who did not want to know from their past. And when you didn't want to know from your past, you had the temptation of being more temperamental and more aggressive in terms of like having no patience for things. And it was
Hmm.
obviously no connection for a child to be in that position, but more as you spoke about being in a state of wonder or connecting to nature or connecting to what lied beyond was the connection. And so that's such an
Hmm.
interesting concept.
It,
Um, I was going to ask you
no, I love it.
in terms of where somebody can reach out to you if they were interested in contacting you.
I would thank you. Well, they can always go on my website, which is wordsfromcara.com, or they can contact me. My email is Cara, C-A-R-A, at wordsfromcara.com. I don't know if that, can you
Yeah.
hear me? Is that clear
Yes, I
enough?
heard
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that's where my books are. That's where, I can and reach out
Yeah.
that way,
Yeah. I'll put that down
and
in the description anyhow. Yeah.
thank you. Thank
Um,
you. No, I've met some wonderful people through this. Yes. What were you going to say, Adam?
yeah, I was going to say to you
You
if
know,
you'd like to leave the audience with with like a message of either what we spoke about or something that's inspirational for them to hear.
thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. You're a delightful man, very evolved and spiritual, and I could talk to you for hours about everything. I love how you're saying it and what you're saying and what you're doing to
Thank you.
help others express themselves. I basically there's the lesson is first of all, you can learn from nature. This is I believe this we've signed on for what I consider it's painful, uh climbing a mountain, or it's not always easy. It can be rocky and painful, and you can slip and fall. And I remember saying to this one person, I said, I'm getting on my, ropes and my shoes, and I'm climbing my mountain. I am climbing this. And this guy said to me, "Whoa, that sounds so hard." He says, "Why don't you just dance up the mountain?" And I thought that was a great way to say it. Why don't we just dance up the mountain? Um, let's enjoy savoring our lives. And it can be as simple, uncomplicated. When I look at the big picture and I see the suffering, the pain, what people are going through, I become immobile. I become totally immobile, and I lose myself in that pain. If I say, "I'm blessing you all. I cannot save you. I'm not God. I cannot save this world, but I can save myself in this world and those in front of me in little ways, calling, talking." It doesn't take much to love and to reach out. Be that pebble, small steps, baby steps. You see the big picture, you bless it and love it and heal it in any way you can envision it. Then you take the baby steps forward. That's what I'm working on. And that's what helping me. Somebody said to me, "Put your hand on your heart and say it just is. It just is." It's like a justice. Doesn't make it, do what you can, but the rest just is, and breathe through it.
Those are beautiful, beautiful
And so
words.
that's it.
Beautiful words, and very
Thank you.
very inspirational. You meet
Thank you.
you meet so many people who don't know how to start, and they know how to
Right.
struggle, as you just mentioned, because we think
Hmm.
we come here to be the to not dance, as you said, but there's
Hmm.
moments when the soul speaks to us, and then I think that's our moment to like take advantage of it and then jump and dance to the melody that we're familiar with. But it doesn't come easy,
That's
and
right.
it doesn't come.
No,
It takes. It's a journey to find it. And
all the time.
you're an inspiration, or at least a leeway, a bridge to that knowledge or information in what you're presenting. So I want to thank you very much for joining me today and sharing the time with me. I'm very honored,
Thank you.
and I honor your story, and I honor you, and I honor the inner child in you that continues to grow and to seek. And with that, nothing ever dies. It's always a continuum because the soul goes on.
It doesn't. It
Right.
does. It's what the last thing is that what I say to in my prayers. I give love and light. I receive love and light. I live love and light. That's my purpose. That's what our purpose. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Beautiful. So I want to thank you for
Thank you
joining.
so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cara, for joining me, and we will talk.
We will continue our talk. Thank you, Adam, for what you're doing. You are love
Absolutely.
and light.
Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you, dear.